Hello everyone and welcome to my AFL SuperCoach trades and captaincies for round 2. Let's get into it. So, there's a lot of interesting things that are happening with the trades this round, given that two highly owned players in Errol Goulden and Hayden Young are not playing. For me, luckily or not, I don't have them. And I've heard a lot of people saying it's unlucky, a lot of people saying it is lucky. But for me, I don't have any of them, so I don't really need to worry about that. However, I do have a big spud in Clayton Oliver, who, if you saw my round wrap video, is on the trade block and is pretty much certainty for me to be traded out this round. Someone else who I'm trading out this round, and it hurts to do this, but it's Sam Walsh, because that 96... he was the 4th highest scorer in that Carlton midfield against one of the weakest midfields in the comp. I think for that game, it's a non-negotiable that he has to be scoring at least 115. If we look at his break-even, it's 98. And we're not picking him as a cash gen, and he does have an easy run, but I'm just not confident in his scoring now. He also does have that injury history, that injury cloud. And also, I don't see him being a top 8 mid come the end of the year. So if there's any point in time to get him out, it would be at his buy, which is right now. And I want to take advantage of that. While I do wish I picked the Goulden, because despite him getting injured, he actually scored about 18, 16 points more. I started Walsh, lost those 16 points, and what has happened has happened. And so with this money, a lot of people would expect me to go a Bontempelli. And while I'm not against the Bontempelli pick, it's hard to trade someone in who has a bye the next round. You look at his upcoming matches, he plays Adelaide in round 2, but then he plays Essendon in round 4. So he's got the round 3 bye. And while my team is not that bad for round 3, I've got Anderson, English, Petrarca, and then I've got Buderick, Lombard, Jakes. I want to take advantage of that. And I'm going to trade in someone who I think is equally as likely to be a keeper. And his name is Luke Jackson. I think I went pretty hard against Luke Jackson in my early teams after the Amy series, because I didn't think he could survive as a second ruck option. But this game, he showed he is so much more than just a second ruck. If we pull up his stats for that Geelong game, we can see he was the second highest scorer in that game. And he got 27 touches, 19 handballs, with 18 contested possessions. By far the most in that game. He also got 10 clearances, and he was only at 59% disposal efficiency. So I think this showed me how good he is as an actual midfielder. He also got 8 tackles, 2 marks, very good. He also conceded 2 frees against, which hurt his score. And I think especially in a loss, it was a very, very strong showing against a very good midfield that has the likes of Holmes, Smith, Atkins, and the lot. And so, especially with his run coming up, he's got Melbourne and he's got Richmond. And Melbourne have a very good ruckman, but they've got a horrible midfield. Richmond don't have either of them. They don't have a good ruckman or a good midfield. And while Nank is a respectable ruckman, he's not good in these current rule environments. And I think you also look at CBA splits. Darcy had 47% of the CBA splits, and he was only playing ruck, which means Jackson attended 53 of the centre bounces as a ruck. So he had more ruck time than Darcy. So which means if you want to be technical, you could say he was the number 1 ruck and Urso playing a lot of midfield. And I just think both Jackson and Bont are 2 players that I want to get in. And if you take Jackson scoring 120, he will rise about 20k over the next 2 rounds. If you look at Bont, if Bont scores 140, he will basically rise, he'll only rise by 5k before round 4. If you go up to 160, so if he gets back-to-back 160s, he'll rise by the same amount as Luke Jackson rises, scoring 120s. He also has the bye. I just think my plan is to get both of them in by round 4, and I'll tell you how that will happen after I tell you who my second trade target is. But I just think Jackson is definitely the one to get now. And with the 551 extra cash, you could expect me to pick another premium, but I'm not going down that route. I'm going straight cash gen, and I'm going to pick, for the defense, Joe Fonte. I just think Joe Fonte has shown now in back-to-back games that he has very good scoring in him. He scored 119 against the Hawks, who aren't that bad, don't have that bad of a forward line, and he scored all right against the Dogs in a thrashing match. His next round is against the Saints, who are very, very easy to score against as halfbackers. Then he's got Collingwood, but then he's got Richmond and then North a couple rounds later. So he's got a good run. And if we go to if we look at his stats for the previous game, 85% time on ground. He didn't take any of the kick-ins, but if you look at his heat map, he was used predominantly as that second option. So the kicker kicks to Fonte, and then Fonte distributes from there, which is a very useful role because you also get the mark counted in that. And you can see in this game, he got 7 marks. And so I think Joe Fonte, while he will steal points off Whitfield and Ash, he basically plays the same role. And at half the price, I think he could be a steal that both scores well and generates a lot of cash. Because if he goes at 80s for the next 5 rounds, he'll generate 100. If he goes at 85, that moves up to 120. If he goes at 90, you're getting good consistent scores and a good 150k. And so it leaves me with 250k left in the bank, which you might think is quite a lot, and it is. But this has sort of been my philosophy going through the buy rounds ever since they've started. And it's that it's a lot easier to hold 200, 250k through the buy rounds than it is after the buy rounds. Because you look in here, players aren't playing, and it's best 18. And so your 3 lowest scores get eliminated. And it makes it a lot easier to cover up a lot of rookie scores. And so I think if I can get myself an advantage by holding a bunch of cash while only losing maybe 5 or 10 points per round, then it's worth it. And it's also sort of offset by the fact that I've traded out Sam Walsh and brought in Luke Jackson, who doesn't have an early buy. And I've also foregone Marcus Bontempelli, who has a buy next round. So, and speaking of Bontempelli, I'm going to share with you my plan to get him in. And we will start off with the 253k that we have in the bank. So, for next round, my plan is to bring in Milan Murdoch at 99.1k. And then I will also bring in Braden Cook at 158.7k. To bring those in, firstly, Mateus Philippou for Braden Cook is a pretty straight swap. So I'm going to add 168.4k, assuming he doesn't play. If he does play, it's even better, but there's a big red question mark around him right here. And then the next person I'm going to trade out is Michael Selwood. And he still has a game, he'll still rise in price. And so let's assume he scores a 45. Pretty low score. He will rise up to 157.4k. And in doing so, he will leave us with 321k in the bank. And this is even more than what I've currently got now, but I have a lot less primos than everyone else going through these rounds. Some people will have Noah Anderson, Marcus Bontempelli, Ed Richards, Tim English, Christian Petrarca, Leah Lombard, Connor Buderick, and Lockie Jakes. That's 8 players who would probably be on field, as well as Jai Sarong and Michael Selwood if they keep them. So I think it's very fine to hold this amount of cash. Then for the next round is when I bring in BONT. And I think my pathway to him is going to be Lockie Blackiston, because he didn't put up the best of showing in this last game, going 62 against 2 Hawthorn Rucks, one of which is 211 centimeters tall. And so if we assume against Port, he goes with an 80, a good score, but then he gets bodied against Tristan Cherry and only scores a 70, then he'll go up to 315k. And he won't generate that much cash, and he's got a tough run. He's got English, Gawn, Witts, Cameron. And I think at that point, it'd be a perfect time to take his cash and basically run, given that the buys are almost over. And so that is what I'll be doing. I'll be trading him out at 315k. And I will be bringing in BONT, who will have one price rise, but I don't foresee it being that much. If we look at his projections, he's projected to score 131, and his break even is 127, which is quite large. If he goes 131, he only rises 2k. If he goes 140, he rises by 6k. If he goes 160, he rises by 15k. So it's not that much. And we'll assume that he goes at 131. He goes up 2k, and he only costs 708k. Oops, I have deleted it there. Let's go minus 708.6k. And that leaves us only needing to get 72k. And so to do that, I would probably go with Jack Carroll. We can assume he'll score a 60 in the next 2 rounds, which will get him up to 203k. And so add 203, 600. And then that gives us 131k to work on a rookie. And I'm sure by that point, there will be a lot of good rookies. And so that's my plan to get in the BONT. It relies on, I don't think, too big of a score from many of these bench players. A 45 from Selwood, a couple 60s from Carroll, a 70 and an 80 from Blackiston might be a bit high. But I think it's worth the wait. And while I don't blame anyone for getting BONT in now, because he's just come off a 160. He's looks like one of the hottest players in AFL right now, in SuperCoach especially. I just can't bring myself to bring someone in who has a bye the next round. And even if I'm not able to get to that price range, if Carroll doesn't rise as much as I'd hope, then I'm very fine using a boost to bring him in. And because that plan doesn't require any boost. It's 2 trades per round for the next 3 rounds. And while it is dangerous to plan too far ahead, because of course you don't know what's going to happen, like a lot of people before this round especially didn't foresee Goulden getting injured for 16 weeks, it's the risk I'm willing to take. And so with that, I will move Marshall onto the field, as well as Devon Robinson. And I will go through my captains for this round. And if you've watched my AFL Fantasy video, they are the exact same. I'm going a VC on Christian Petrarca against the Richmond Tigers, and I'm putting the C on Harry Sheezel against the West Coast Eagles. I just think if you look at who scored well against the West Coast Eagles, you had Zach Butters and Connor Rosie in the preseason game scoring 170 and 150. And then last round, you had Noah Anderson and Christian Petrarca scoring 130 and 150. I think it might be a West Coast issue. I think they just might concede these mammoth scores against the midfielders. And so I think Harry Sheasel, especially with his accumulating nature, is going to go off against them. And if we have anything close to the game he played against Richmond last year, where he got 54 touches, I think he got 186 for that game. And so this is it. This is the team going into round 2. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below who are your trades, if you're bringing in any interesting pods, or did you get lucky? Are you even making a trade this round? And so with that, I will see you in the next one. Happy coaching.